Go ahead. ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तं वन्दे गुरुपरम्परम् ॐ गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः ॐ सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वार्धे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा कार्पण्यदोषोपहाता स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वं पृच्छामि त्वं धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यश्रेयस्य निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधिमं त्वं प्रपन्नम् ॐ वाङ्मे मनसि प्रतिष्ठिता मनो मे वाचि प्रतिष्ठितम् आविर्भावैधि वेदस्य मा अनिष्टः श्रुतं मे मा प्रहासिः अनेनाहदितेन अहोरात्रं सन्दधामि मृतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारम् अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवा भद्रं पश्येमक्षभिर्यजत्रः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवाग्वं सस्तनूभिः विषेमा देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति न तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्ठनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ अहं वृक्षस्य वीरिवा कीर्तिपृष्ठं गिरिरिवा ऊर्ध्वा पवित्रो वाजिनीवा स्वमृतमास्मि द्रविणग्वं सवर्चसं सुमेधा अमृतोक्षतः इति त्रिशङ्कुर्वेदानुवाचनम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः
Okay. Thank you, Sanchita. I couldn't hear you, I think, half the way. So I'm not sure if there is an audio problem at my end or something.
Is there a lag happening?
Is everybody else able to hear both me and Sanchita clearly?
Yeah, we can hear.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Could have been my issue. Okay. Let's start. So we started chapter 16 in the last class, right? Now, what we have to always, remind ourselves constantly in every chapter, here, what is the aim of Gita, right? What is the purpose of Gita? And it is reminded to us at the end of every chapter when we do the closing of the chapter, right? In that, one of the words that is consistently used is what? Brahma Vidya. That Gita is providing us Brahma Vidya. And what is the purpose for that? The purpose is sought back in chapter 1. When Arjun was completely, in that the Vishad Yoga, Arjun Vishad Yoga, Arjun basically came to a conclusion that I have name, I have fame, I am born in a very noble family, I have all the assets that you can think of in the world, I have a lot of wealth, right? And despite all of that, he says, now, even if I acquire all three kingdoms, right? Even if I become the Indra and I become the Raja of the Devas, even that is not going to be enough to take away the sorrow I feel at this point of time. That was the space in which Arjun found himself. And he found himself completely confused. He said, everything that I had learned of is now, or everything I had acquired till date, is unable to get rid of this sorrow. And that's when Gita starts, when he surrenders himself to Krishna and says, now help me and tell me what can I do to get rid of the sorrow. So Gita's purpose is removal of sorrow. Removal of sorrow through what mechanism? Through Atma Gyan, through Brahma Vidya. Brahma Vidya is nothing but Atma Gyan. And this is not one of the remedies to remove sorrow. It is not one of the paths to remove sorrow. Bhagwanji tells us again and again in Gita and in all the other Upanishads as well, this is the only path that will help us remove sorrow. So this is the only path. Okay, this is not one of the paths. It isn't a case of all roads lead to Rome. Okay, so you can't take multiple paths. There is only one path to removal of sorrow, which is Atma Gyan. There is no other way. And he also tells us that the main malady that we all have, the reason we have all this sorrow is only one. The reason is ignorance. And the way to remove ignorance is only one, which is Atma Gyan. Then he does tell us that there are multiple ways to get to that Atma Gyan. And he tells us that there are two main paths. There is Karma Yoga and there is Jnana Yoga, right? The Sankhya Yoga. The Karma Yoga and the Sankhya Yoga to lead to Atma Gyan. But ultimately, everything has to lead to Atma Gyan, which is the only way to remove sorrow, ultimately, right? Now that we understand that the way to get rid of our sorrow and the only purpose and the primary aim of reading Gita is removal of this sorrow, which is through acquisition of Atma Gyan, right? Then what is the way to achieve Atma Gyan? What are the instruments? What are the tools that have been provided to us? The tools are intellect and man, buddhi and man. These are the two tools that have been provided to us. Okay. And Upanishads also tell us that ultimately man cannot know Atma. Nothing can know Atma. Why? Because man, intellect, everything that we have, all these instruments themselves are very finite. And Atma is infinite. How can finite know infinite? It's impossible. The only way finite can know infinite is when finite becomes infinite himself. And which is the last piece that we always talk of. The ultimate, like we can get ourselves to our Vishuddha Chakra. Not Vishuddha Chakra, to the Agya Chakra. From here to Sahasrar Chakra, which is that getting from here to like final realization. And that final realization is when we become God himself. Because in case of this spiritual knowledge, the object of knowledge, the action, the process of getting knowledge, and the person who acquires knowledge, all of them combine themselves into one. Right? So you become God himself in that moment, right? When you reach the Sahasrara Chakra. So you fully know Atma only through God's grace. Now, how do we receive that God's grace? How do we receive that Gyan? For that, now Bhagwanji has divided up the entire sadhana, has been told to us that there are two parts to sadhana. There is stage 1 and there is stage 2. Stage 1 of sadhana is essentially a process of cleansing of the instruments. Right? You have instruments, the mind and the intellect. If these are not cleansed enough, if these are not refined enough, they will never be able to help you to actually get that Gyan. Get it? So there are two stages. First stage is what is called These are the two stages that are covered in the first 12 chapters, the first two shataks, right? Through Karma Yoga, through Bhakti Yoga, it is all about refinement of Antahkaran, cleansing of Antahkaran, refining of the tools to acquire this Atmagyan. And then the second stage of sadhana is the actual Vedanta. So in the first stage, which is about refinement, is also what is called acquisition of sanskars. अगर हमारे दिल में संस्कार नहीं है, हमारे अंतःकरण में संस्कार, if we are not sanskari and our अंतःकरण is not sanskari, then we will not be able to acquire the gyan. What happens when an asanskari person receives this gyan? And we know Bhagwan Ji is giving gyan all the time to us. The grace of Bhagwan Ji is all over to us, is all around us. And he calls this secret as the greatest open secret. He doesn't say, I have not like hidden it somewhere. It's a greatest open secret, right? Chapter 9, greatest open secret. And yet people all around are unable to take this grace that is falling around us. They are unable to see the secret that is hiding in plain sight. Why? Because they don't have the tools that are refined enough. We are not sanskari enough. When an asanskari purush is given the gyan, what happens? First, either he is depending on the levels of sanskar that we have developed over a period of time, right? First, the person is never even able to appreciate why Gita is required. He's not able to appreciate the gyan. He's not able to appreciate anything that Gita says, and everything that Gita says is opposite to what he thinks is actually correct. Right? So he will never even appreciate the gyan. He does not understand why he needs to follow Gita principles. He does not understand why Gita is important, or why that life, why leading life as per those principles is important at all. Right? So that is your first level. Okay. Now, even if we get to a stage where we're like, okay, now certain amount of my antakaran is shuddha, it is certain amount is refined. So I now understand why Gita is important. Okay. Now, even if I listen to it, I will not be able to understand it. Okay. I will not be able to understand how and where to apply those principles. Right. Now, suppose I have even better sanskars, okay, through all my actions and all, I've improved my sanskars. Now, at this stage, I understand. When I listen, I can, to a certain extent, understand how and where to apply those principles. But then, I won't be able to retain it. I won't be able to remember it. Retention means what? Remembering it at all times, right? I won't be able to retain it. And all of us can subscribe to all of these things in some format, right? Where there are parts of Gita which we totally don't agree. Ask a person who drinks alcohol or eats non-veg, and you tell them that you're on path of Gita, stop it. And they have 2,500 reasons why they cannot give it up. Proteins, right? Where will I get my proteins from? Correct? You'll have all kinds of reasons, right? We have to give up grains, but I will not give up proteins. I'll only have chicken and vegetables, right? We've seen all of those conversations, right? So, so parts of Gita which all of us will not appreciate. Ask a person to give up alcohol, and he'll find, Gandhari Buddhi will find hundreds of reasons. I am an occasional drinker. I only drink once in a while to relax myself. And that's also Satoguni, because I'm relaxing myself so that I can get ready for the next day. Okay. All kinds of things. Okay. So these are people whose sanskars do not allow them to even appreciate why way of Gita has to be followed. Okay. And now this is an example I'm giving because it's close to me, right? So I can tell you. Now, you will all have other things. Somebody who's vegetarian and like doesn't drink doesn't mean that he appreciates everything. There are other parts of Gita where he'll say, nonsense, I don't need to follow this. Okay. So that's part of us which does not appreciate Gita because we don't have the right sanskars. And then there are parts that we understand. Okay. But, or there are parts that we listen to, but we don't understand. Why do I have to give up onion and garlic? I don't understand. Onion and garlic are good in limited amounts, and I eat only limited amounts in my food because they have medicinal properties, right? Without knowing what medicine really means, right? Paracetamol is a medicine, doesn't mean that we eat it every day. We only eat it when it is required, correct? So parts of things that we understand, we listen, but we don't understand fully, or we understand, but we don't retain. We all by now know that there are certain demonical properties, which we will go into further depth. We all know that we don't do karma yoga, but do we remember it? We all know Bhagwan Ji exists everywhere, but when I'm interacting with the other person, immediately De Bhav comes into play, my body consciousness comes into play. And now it's about you and me. How dare you say this thing to me? I felt really bad because this person said something to me or did not say something that I expected this person to say. Immediately that comes in, right? So there is no retention of that knowledge at all times, right? So what is the reason for this? The only reason is that we do not have the right sanskars. Vedic way of living, the entire lifestyle, Vedic lifestyle is designed so that our antakaran becomes full of the right sanskars that will allow us to be able to acquire the gyan and hence get rid of all sorrows. Okay. Now, for us to be able to do this refinement, right? And sorry, one more thing, right? So we now the word sanskar, right? We've also heard of it in a slightly different context, right? When people are born, they say ek naam sanskar hota hai, ek wo sanskar hota hai to do janeyu. There's a sanskar to like eat your first food. Anna sanskar kehte hain usko, right? There are all kinds of sanskars, right? Vivah is a sanskar, wedding is a sanskar. At the end of life, deh sanskar is another sanskar, right? So these are the gross forms of certain sanskars. But basically, sanskar doesn't just mean those gross forms. Those are basically parts or major padav of a person's life. And when you do them, it's important to recognize them to be able to do those sanskars with the right mindset, with the right purpose, and with the right bhav, which then guides us for the next stage of life. That is why the sanskars are recognized properly, right? The appropriate day sanskar, for example, at the end of life, prepares us for the next life. It purifies us for the next life. So now these, so basically our first stage is what? Acquisition of the right sanskars, which is what we have been constantly saying, that it is antakaran ki shuddhi. First 12 chapters all about antakaran ki shuddhi. Now, there are two stages to this antakaran ki shuddhi. Two stages to antakaran ki shuddhi. One is what is called dosh apanayam. Dosh apanayam means removal of dirt, removal of unwanted qualities. Dosha apanayan, apanayanam, apanayam. Okay, dosh apanayam, removal of the dosh, removal of the dirt inside of us. And the second stage is guna adhanam, acquisition of virtues. And acquisition of virtues doesn't mean acquiring from outside as much as it is about the virtues that are already inside of us, that they start to show up when we do the, when we remove the dirt, and then we start to practice them, refine them, practice them, develop those right habits, right? So we have the right muscles inside of us, but if we don't exercise them, then those muscles become weak, right? That is what is meant by acquisition of virtues. It's not as much as acquisition from outside. It is not adhanam, like, you're taking it from outside, as much as it is practice, constant practice to develop strength in those virtues that already exist inside of us. Okay. So as an example, when we shower, right, the whole process of cleansing our body, applying soap, shampoo, putting water on us, all of that is dosh apanayam, cleansing the body, removal of dirt. And after that, we apply cream, we apply oil, we apply kumkum, chandan. All of that is gun adhanam. Okay, same for house. When we clean the house, then that is dosh apanayam. And then we decorate the house up beautifully. That is gun adhanam. Right? And same thing has to be done for the refinement of the mind. And now this chapter and the very next one, both of them are going to now go deeper into these two aspects and help us distinguish. See, first 12 chapters, all we have done is figure out what are the issues, why I need to do refinement of my antakaran, how I need to do refinement of antakaran. Okay, what is the bhav with which I should do that refinement, and how it relates to my everyday life. Okay. And then I also see that after first 6 chapters, that if I just do whatever is prescribed in first 6 chapters, it is going to very quickly fuel my ego. So I become a Ravan very quickly. And that's not what I want to be, right? I want to not become Ravan. I want to become Ram. So then Bhakti Yoga comes into very important play, because that's where the surrender of the ego actually happens, right? So the first 12 chapters deal with that. Now we are going to get deeper into understanding, okay, now that I've understood this, what exactly should I be aware of are my end goals? What are those dosh that I'm trying to remove? And what are those virtues I need to practice? That is the purpose of this chapter now, right? We are in the last shatak. I'm just trying to tell you how everything is like related to each other. We need to constantly like zoom out before we zoom back in, right? Otherwise, we lose track of like why and what is the context. So in the last shatak, it is all about acquisition of gyan. And in the acquisition of gyan, the entire philosophy is encapsulated in the first 3 chapters of this gyan shatak. Okay. 13, 14, 15, which we've completed that. But that gyan that has been so clearly elucidated in these 3 chapters, it will go nowhere unless we are fully sanskari. है ना? वरना तो अभी हमने कर लिया है. We all should be Bhagwan ji today. We all should be Ram. But we are not, because we don't have the right sanskar. So after he's given this, he says, okay, now coming back. Now you'll be like, okay, now I have acquired Gyan. No, you've not acquired Gyan, because these are the things that now you need to focus on. Why did you not get this Gyan even after I gave it to you? I literally told it to you in as easy words as I can, and you've still not absorbed it. Why? You don't have the right wealth inside of you. So that's why now on chapter 16, we are focusing on the Devi Sampada and the Asuri Sampada. So the dosh that we need to make sure that we are constantly getting rid of, and we fully get rid of. The dosh apanayam are the Asuri qualities that he'll talk about. And the virtues we need to practice, the sanskars that we need to develop inside of us, are the divine qualities. And these divine qualities, to be very clear, are not things that you need to get from outside. These are already present inside of us, because these are our very nature. This is who we really are. Today, we don't recognize that this is who we really are. You look at this and we're like, oh, fearlessness? No way. I'm like constantly fearful. I'm fearful of all kinds of things. And I act from that fear constantly. Right? So I'm not fearless. Why is that? Because of the abundance of the Asuri qualities inside of me, and an abundance of my my constant focus being out in the sansar. A person who is focused on sansar can never be fearless. And a person who's fully focused inside and is only looking inside can never be fearful. So if we are feeling fear, that means somewhere we are ensnared in the sansar. Our fears are always around sansar. Okay. So now here we are going to, in this chapter, as we read through this, right, think of this as divine qualities as acquisition or practice of healthy mental habits. And the Asuri qualities, think of them as you needing to remove mental habits that are sickening and unhealthy. We all have them. And we need to remove them. Otherwise, they are the reasons for our poor health. They are the reasons for our sickness. Okay? Okay. So with that, we will start. We'll go through so we did fearlessness last time. And now we will do purity of mind. Okay. So just to go back to the shloka here, I'll just read it once more. And then abhayam, the quality here, the word here is abhayam. Abhayam is fearlessness. And the next one that we are going to read, which is purity of mind, is sattva samshuddhihi. Sattva samshuddhihi. Purity of mind. Kavita, do you want to read with us?
I need to read the shloka or just directly go to the purity of mind.
Let's read the shloka once, right? It's a very important shloka. Shri Bhagavan
Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
Abhayam Sattva Samshuddhihi
Apayam Sattva Samshuddhihi
Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitihi
Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitihi
Danam Damascha Yajnascha
Dhanam Damascha Yajnascha
Swadhyayastapa Arjavam.
Svadhyayastapa Achavam. Purity of mind. Lust, greed, covetousness, cruelty, and other such negative thoughts tarnish the mind. To keep the mind free of such thoughts leads to purity of mind.
So, Sattva Samshuddhihi, because purity of mind means what? When we had read the three, when we read about the three gunas, right? We talked about that there is only one guna that will always be in ascendancy, and the others will be lower than that, right? So, purity of mind comes when we keep the sattva in the driver's seat. Okay. So Prem, when we had read this, there's a full chapter which just deals with the three gunas of nature, which is sattva, rajas, and tam. And we likened them to a car where you have these three passengers, sat, raj, and tam. When we say that the only one of these three can be in ascendancy at any point of time, which means that there's the only one which is the driver's seat. Okay, one guna will be in the driver's seat, and that will lead others to do whatever they need to do. So purity of mind comes when sato gun is in the driver's seat. When sato gun says, okay, this work needs to be done, rajas comes into action. When sato gun says this is not required, calm down, then tam comes into action. Right? So both Raj and Tam in the service of Satogun leads to purity of mind. And what causes impurity of mind? Lust, greed, covetousness, cruelty, right? These are things that we all have experienced in our lives at various times, right? So this is very, very important, right? Purity of mind is the next thing. After fearlessness, what should we focus on? Sattva. Increasing sattva in our consciousness. And we had read that there's one shloka, right, which talks about what kind of actions lead to increase in satogun. Remember? There's a full shloka that talks about the kind of activities and the kind of activities that will increase satogun. Let me take that shloka out for us to read once. Gunatraya Vibhag Yog. Here it is. Yeah, page 402. So this was chapter 14, shlok 16. The righteous acts result in an increase of satogun. And what are those? The righteousness consists of what? 10 principles. Dhriti, fortitude. Kshama, forgiveness. So fortitude, when things go wrong and if things feel difficult, life feels difficult, that's when we have to invoke fortitude. Fortitude in the face of things not going our way. Because when things are not going our way, it is going his way. Forgiveness. Forgiveness for ourselves and forgiveness for others. Dam, self-restraint. Restrain at a physical level. Restrain of our senses. Then, Tayam, non-stealing. Right? Not stealing from others. Shaucham, purity. Shaucham indriya nigraha. Purity of mind and body. Restraint of senses. And then purity of intellect. Acquisition of knowledge, the right knowledge. So when we are reading scriptures, when we are in satsang, all of this helps us in acquisition of the right knowledge, right? Truthfulness, satya. truthfulness, satya, akrodh, issuing anger. These are the 10 characteristics of righteousness. When we remind ourselves of these 10 principles of righteousness and practice them, they lead to purity of mind. Okay. So this is the second Devi Gun. There are total 26 Devi Gun that we will be told about. This is the second, purity of mind. But as you can see, purity of mind as a concept is a single concept, but behind that is what? 10 principles of righteousness that we need to practice on a daily basis. Right? And out of this, for all of us, the most important thing is akrodh. Akrodh. Where does krodh come from? Krodh. Wherever you have krodh, there is a desire hidden behind it. Always. So if you are experiencing krodh, if you are experiencing anger, you have to go right back to finding what desire is hiding behind this. Desire to control someone, desire to get someone to do exactly what we want them to do, right? If they don't do what I tell them to do, my children, my husband, my in-laws, my parents, krodh aa jata hai, right? So krodh is either that controlling of people, want them to do what you want them, or there is an acquisition. I want something from the world. I want something from someone else. I want them to respect me. I want them to love me. I want them to tell me how great I am. I want money. I want a new house. I want a new car. I want exactly that car. I want exactly that one toy. Right? I want exactly that one dinner set in my house, which I did not get. So now I'm upset with everybody around me who got in the way of me getting that particular dinner set before it got sold out. All kinds of things. Right? So krodh is the most important thing. We are all krodhi because we are all full of desires. All of us are full of desires which are sansaric in nature. And so we are all full of krodh. That's one very important thing that we need to focus on. Krodh. And second most important thing is kshama. Okay, nobody's perfect, including ourselves. There's only one perfection. Perfection only lies in Bhagwanji, no one else. Everyone else, including us, is imperfect. So the way things will get done will be imperfect. They will never be exactly in line with the way we want them to be. Being able to forgive ourselves and others for the faults that they have and we have is a very, very important way to make sure that we are constantly we maintain our peace of mind and we accept those faults. We accept people with exactly the faults they have, including our spouses. Right? We constantly want our spouses to be that perfect Apsara or that perfect Dev. Right? That perfect person who will do all perfect things at all times, which is impossible. It is madness. Actually, perfection in material world is a disease of the mind. And the fun part is that everywhere in this world, every literature in this world, every conversation that is there in this world is for running after perfection. Movies show those perfect people with the perfect life, right? Hum aapke hain kaun? That perfect family with perfect virtues, with perfect relationships, right? Hum saath hain. It doesn't exist. And trying to model our lives around these perfect looking men and women with their perfect relationships and their perfect houses and everything is complete sickness of mind. It will get us nowhere, but lot of sorrow. Okay, so we have to let go of that. We have to forgive ourselves and accept ourselves with the faults that we have, and similarly for others. So kshama and krodh, focus on these two, everything else will follow in place. Okay, so that leads to what? Purity of mind. Two things that will constantly take us away is lust, greed, covetousness. All of these are what related to what? Desires. And all of these will lead to what? Impure actions and will lead to anger. Cruelty and all these negative thoughts that we're talking about, what is this? This is all going to come from where you're going to try and control other people, where you want others to do what you want them to do, and you will be cruel to people in their in thought, in words, in actions. So we have to issue all of this. And all of this, what righteous action will help us get ourselves away from cruelty is kshama, forgiveness. Okay. We'll go to the next one.
Steadfast pursuance of yoga. To be persistent in the practice of yoga discipline with complete faith leads to steadfast pursuance of yoga.
So pursuance of yoga is what? Yoga here, as we all know by now, is not referring to the physical action of yoga, right? We're not talking of hatha yoga or whatever yoga to beautify our bodies. That's one part. But actually the word yoga here, yoga is used for connection to the Lord. So whatever actions, whatever VVGP we experience and whatever actions we do in this VVGP is for what? For steadfastly only connecting to the Lord. I experience sorrow, I experience unhappiness, I experience something that causes me pain. I use that also to connect to Lord, which is why chapter 1 is called what? Arjun Vishad Yog. Even Vishad, confusion, sorrow became a way to connect to the Lord. I see happiness, I see beauty. I use that also to connect to the Lord. Actually, for most of us, we use when things become bad, we actually find it easier to surrender ourselves. क्योंकि क्या होता है ना कि when things are going well, one is ego really goes up. We think all the things that are happening well in my life is because of me. I studied hard, so I got the marks. I worked hard, so I got my promotion. I am so smart, so I'm getting all the job offers, those amazing job offers. That's why I am the manager. That's why I'm the CEO. That's why I'm the entrepreneur, right? Ego goes up really high, right? A project goes well, client says amazing, well done. So kya? I, as the leader of this team, it all happened because of me. I led the whole team properly, right? Or as a team, as a part of the team, I think like I am the one who did all the hard work. That's why it's all because of me, right? Ego goes up very high when things are going really, really well. It is when things go really bad and all of my ego has done everything to try and sort this problem out by myself. And then I realize, boss, I cannot solve it. Then surrender actually comes, and then I come to Bhagwanji, and then I'm praying to Bhagwanji. For what? Not for Gyan. At that time also, I'm praying to Bhagwanji for getting rid of this affliction, this malady that I'm facing, to improve my worldly circumstances. Bhagwanji, ye problem solve kara do. Bhagwanji, meri ye disease le lo. Bhagwanji, ye kar do. Bhagwanji, we are always doing that, which is also fine. At the first level, Bhagwanji said what? We have 4 types of bhakt. And the first type of bhakt who he has told is what? Artharthi. Artharthi. But Artharthi is a bhakt. Why is he a bhakt? Because the only person he asks something from is God. And he knows unka Aadhar is only God. Only God gives and only God takes. So with that focus, he asks Bhagwanji, ki Bhagwanji, please mujhe de do, aap hi de rahe ho, aap hi le rahe ho. But we are not even that. We are not even Artharthi. You know why? Because we don't ask God only. We ask God and then we ask everyone else. Then I'll ask my spouse, I'll ask my child, do this, do this, do this, do this. I will not accept what they are giving me. I will not go and just only talk to Bhagwanji. I will also ask everybody else around me, and then I'll blame everybody else around me when they don't give me what I want. So we are not real bhakts. Real bhakt is when we only ask Bhagwanji and accept everything that comes in my way. अगर किसी चीज से मुझे प्रॉब्लम है, I will, अगर मेरे को मेरे हस्बैंड से प्रॉब्लम है, उसने नहीं किया जो मैंने कहा था, मेरे बॉस ने नहीं किया जो मैंने कहा था, I will not go and complain to my boss. I will not complain to my husband. I will go complain to Bhagwanji. यार क्या कर रहे हो यार लाइफ में? Help me with this. I don't know how to deal with it. But I will not go and shout at other people in my life. So Artharthi does that. We are not even Artharthi. So steadfast pursuance of yoga basically means using every VVGP that we get in our life to connect to Lord. Everything is seen only as a blessing or as a lesson. Everything we understand, we fully understand that this life is rigged in favor of my ultimate welfare. Nothing can go wrong in my life Nothing. Because Bhagwan Ji is leading it. How can Bhagwan Ji do anything wrong, yaar? He has made this world. Look at the way it ticks. Every single fraction of a second is perfect and is continuously happening. There is no day that the sun refuses to rise or set. After the class. Cannot disturb me in the class. Okay, I'll come back. So Bhagwan Ji has created itni badi srishti, right? He knows what he's doing and he has the full capabilities of executing what he needs to execute. So our lives are in his hand. If I have that full faith and full yoga with him, then I need to understand that this life is being led by him, and all decisions, every circumstance that's happening in my life is happening because he wants it to happen. And for what purpose? Not to tease me, not to make me sorrowful, not to make me upset. He's doing this to help me in my journey for my ultimate welfare. This particular circumstance in my life that has been created for me, it has been created because it is the shortest path to self-realization. Because if I use that situation correctly for yoga to Bhagwan Ji, then that particular circumstance will help me elevate whatever maladies are inside of me in the fastest way possible. है ना? Everything outside of जो अंदर है वही बाहर है. We've talked about it often, right? So if whatever we see outside of us is only a reflection of what is inside of us. If I see a person whose behavior is atrocious for me and it triggers me, then I don't need to focus on that person and see what I need to do to get that person to change his behavior. I need to see what is inside of me that triggers it. कहीं तो वो आके चिपक रहा है ना, कहीं तो वो आके चिपक रहा है. तो what I need to focus on is not कि ये जो चिपका रहा है उसको तो मैं रहने दूं. No, you think about what we typically do is I look at this trigger point and I keep saying I need to get rid of this. I need to get rid of this. You don't need to get rid of this. You have no control over this. You have control here. So what you need to do is cleanse yourself here. So there is nothing here that will stick it. Now this will still come and it will just go away. It will not stick. It will not stick. So then this thing stops being an irritant in your life completely. It stops having any effect on you. So everything that is outside is telling me something about myself inside. And that's all I need to do. Purpose of Gita is Atma Gyan, not kisi aur ka gyan. So that is steadfast pursuance of yoga, constantly being connected to Lord through every VVGP. Let's go to the next one.
Charity. Use of one's monetary and material resources acquired through righteous means, as well as the assistance rendered by imparting one's knowledge to others for the love of the needy, constitutes charity.
Charity, very, very important, right? Charity has been given a very, very high state or a high position in our lives, in Vedic way of life. We are supposed to do a lot of charity, right? Now, charity of what? The highest form of charity, highest form of dan is Abhay Dan. Okay, highest form of dan is Abhay Dan. That we impart or we provide fearlessness to our environment, to the people on whom we have influence or on whom we can help. So people who do we have highest influence on? First is ourselves, then our children. People who have been put in our care, the employees who are there in our care, children who are in our care, our helpers who are in our care, right? And of course ourselves. Highest dan is fearlessness to them. Fearlessness for them to do the right thing. What do we do instead? We instead are constantly filling people around us with fear. Fear and carrot, right? What do we call? Carrot and stick approach. जिसमें stick बहुत use होती है. Carrot and stick approach is actually a very Kaurava approach to life. You create a team where everybody is motivated by either carrot or stick. You've got a army of Kauravas, with everyone having different agendas in life, because they are not being driven by a larger purpose of why they are doing what they are doing. They are doing this for fear of stick or for getting their particular carrot, which may be very different from your carrot. And when those carrots are in two different directions, you'll never be able to lead a team. Right? So, fearlessness is the highest charity. Think about our own children. How much fear we put in them. Homework karo, test के लिए पढ़ो, वरना जॉब नहीं मिलेगा. ऐसे बिहेव करो, वरना ये नहीं होगा. ऐसे करो, वरना वो नहीं होगा. We are always using carrot and stick with our children. Always. How many times do we talk to them and tell them when you want them to do something? Observe how we talk to them. Do we tell them about why they need to do this because of a certain principle and underlying principle? Or do we do this because it's easier to use a carrot and stick approach? Do this and I will bribe you with TV time. Or I'll bribe you with a chocolate. Or I'll bribe you with that next holiday. Or I'll bribe you with that next thing that you want. Do well in your exams. And you will get that video game you were always asking for. Very standard ways of motivation that we provide and we learn in our corporate culture. All our lives we've learned that. So we are constantly bribing them with the carrots, or we are filling them up with fear. And the first fear we instill in them is of our own selves. Fear of authority. And who's the first authority figure? It is our own parents, right? We instill fear in our children, and that's how we get them to do what we want them to do. But that only remains as long as they are dependent on us. Right? It doesn't last beyond 15, 16, 17 years of life. And after that, fear factor has no role to play. It will now start to roll back on you. Because your children will now treat you with the same way as you treated them when they were 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds. So the world comes around. Huh? So fearlessness is the most important daan, and it is our duty to instill our children with fearlessness. And fearlessness does not mean doing stupid things and saying, go break the law. You don't need to be afraid of authority. You can't do that. That's foolish. Breaking the law at a gross level is the same as at some point of time, you will break the laws of nature. And nature is going to be very unforgiving then. Okay? You can't go and I'll break the law and stand on the train track, right? You're going to die. So fearlessness comes from what? As we read in the very beginning, fearlessness comes from being able to live a life that is aligned with the right principles. So instilling fearlessness in our children or in our employees means directing them and guiding them through principles. Fearlessness in ourselves. That charity in ourselves is by making sure that we live a life that is based on principles. And when we live a life based on principles, then we know what is the truth, what is the right thing to fight for, what is the right thing to, and what is to let go. So that's the first and the highest form of charity. The next highest form of charity is Gyan. Gyan Dan. Okay, so when you help somebody, and now Gyan Dan can be of all kinds of things, right? When you help somebody, when you mentor someone, when you mentor a young child, a new apprentice in your office, honestly, you're not going to get anything out of it. And that's the right attitude to do it, rather than saying that I will tick another thing in my box and that will help me become a manager. Purpose behind everything, right? When Azim Premji opens a university through his foundation with the sole purpose of giving Gyan to people, and that's a real high form of Gyan Dan. Now, all of us don't have the money of Azim Premji to be able to open a foundation and to open a university. But we all can do Gyan Dan at our own levels, right? We can mentor children. When young kids talk to us around us, our friends' children, the school children, we go to schools, our kids have their friends. When we get an opportunity to give them the right Gyan of principles, or we help them do their maths homework, or we help young children, guide them for their next journey of life. All of these are Gyan Dan, right? All forms of Gyan Dan. And the highest form of Gyan Dan is the Gyan of the truth, of what is the truth, right? But that doesn't mean that, you take out time to teach somebody computer skills, or you take some, you teach needy kids some maths or whatever. Like, all of these are Gyan Dan. They are helping them for where they are in their lives. So this is the second highest form of Dan, fearlessness, and then Gyan. After that comes the Gyan of the resources that Bhagwan Ji has given us. So the next highest form of Dan is actually time. Why that particular resource? Because time is the only resource that is finite in nature and will never come back. There is nothing you can do to buy more time, change the time that you have on your hands, or to be able to recreate anything. A time that second of time that has gone forever. Whatever you did with it, whatever you chose to fill it up with. So time, giving time, Shram Dan is what you're actually doing. You're spending your time and energy to do something, right? On your own, not through someone else. That is the next highest form of Dan. So volunteering with various NGOs, find the right NGO, doing some Shram Dan there, volunteering activity, not just NGOs, but doing volunteering activity in schools of your children, doing volunteering activity. But even in, when you're volunteering as a parent in your own child's school is again, I would say, not that high form of Dan, because आप वो कर रहे हो अपने बच्चे के लिए कर रहे हो ना, ultimately. It all comes back to you. When you do that sort of thing for someone else, where you are not the primary recipient or beneficiary, right, of that Shram Dan, is a very high form of Dan. Shram Dan. And then comes the Dan of the resources we have. भगवान ने पैसा दिया है, भगवान ने घर दिया है, भगवान ने कार दी है, भगवान ने आपको इतने रिसोर्सेज दिए हैं, इंटेलिजेंस दी है. Using that to do good for others. You donate money, you buy grains and you donate it to Gurudwara. You do Annadan. In sab mein bhi Annadan is considered of all from the other infinite resources in this world, like apart from time, right? Annadan is considered higher than all others. अन्नदान बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट दान कहा जाता है, और वो हमेशा कहा जाता है. हमारे उसमें बोलते हैं कि अपना खाने से पहले किसी भगवान को भोग लगाओ, और वो भोग लगा के किसी और को दे दो. So हमारे उसमें parents and all, like old generation, my dada dadi, nana nani, they would do this, right? They would do that. वो जो रोटी बनाते थे for गाय. गाय क्या है? गाय is one form of animal that is dependent on you, and you're doing that dan to them, right? Similarly, people would feed dogs, people would feed others, right? People would feed, they would give orphan. किसी को भी कोई mendicant आएगा घर पे खाने के लिए, आप हमेशा उन्हें दान देंगे, right? These were all when we had a Vedic way of life. There were all these opportunities to do andan. Today we don't have. In Singapore, you try and do गोदान करने के लिए हम जा रहे हैं किसी गौशाला जहाँ पे all those animals are like, it doesn't make sense, right? Now refine it to our situation. Who needs that annadan? Go find a way to do annadan. You can do annadan in mandir in Singapore, for example, right? Saturday, Sunday, Friday, they do that dan, or you can go to Gurudwara. The workers come and eat there. So annadan in your own friends is no annadan. These people don't need your annadan. But the workers there are very happy to come and eat food. So you are helping somebody that needs it and will be able to appreciate it. That is the real annadan. हम लोग वो नवमी करते हैं, है ना? नवमी की पूजा अभी आने वाली है, right? We'll call the little girls of our in our friend circle and we'll feed them. Now the purpose and the mind, right? Purpose is very important. Bhav is very important. But after that, like I would love to do some dan to kids who are lesser. That have lesser than the kids in our own friend circle, who are very pampered kids. We all know, right? They're like the top 1% of this world. So, like annadan is the next level of dan, and after that comes the money donation. Very easy to do, boss. It's very easy to do. Still, we don't do. वो 1% भी अपनी wealth का देना किसी को हमें बहुत ज्यादा लगता है ना? That then the next come is money. So the dan, what does dan do? Dan has the ability to purify. It purifies. You do dan of wealth, it purifies your wealth. अब कितना दान करना चाहिए? I will not comment on that. But a billionaire giving away $100 versus somebody who earns, $1,000, he giving away $100 is a way big difference between the two, right? So it's not the quantity, it is about, what you have. So you do dan which is commensurate with your abilities. Wealth ka dan will purify your wealth. Anna dan purifies multiple things because that anna has come from your wealth. That anna is what gives you poshan, right? Gives you food, it cleanses us and it gives us the energy to do our dharma, right? The time that we spend with others, and we share the gyan with us, it purifies our intellect, it purifies our ego, it purifies our man, right? So dan is very, very important activity to purify ourselves. Ask yourself how many times somebody asks you for volunteering activity and how many questions we have about like not being able to do it. Time is not suitable, day is not suitable, activity is not suitable, too far to go for volunteering. Right? So it will cause some tap. All kinds of charity causes tap. And tap has a way of creating. Tap is what? Whatever creates friction. It creates energy. Friction always creates energy, right? We create, just do this, and you see the friction is creating energy. All kinds of tap creates energy. Charity will create tap, which will create energy, and that energy will purify our antakaran. Charity. Next.
Restraint of senses. A conviction that is vain to hope for any happiness from worldly enjoyments leads to restraints of senses.
Okay. Yeah, sorry. One last thing in charity before I forget. The last part that they said, why are you doing this? For the love of the needy constitutes charity. For the love of the needy. For the love of the people that you are helping. You're not doing this for your own benefit. So volunteering in your child's school to do a Diwali party is not going to be characterized as charity under this. It will be yet another Rajoguni activity that you will do. In most cases. In most cases, I'm saying in most cases. In some cases, this would constitute charity, probably. All depends on hundreds of factors, right? So examples I give are never 100% true. So just remember that, right? They are true for a certain context only. Third time with that. Third time in the same class. Tell me.
I got to 6 out of the 9. The hard.
It's okay. You leave them. I'll help you after that. Okay? You do the next thing. Do as much as you can. Which is good. That's enough. That's all I asked you to do.
It's just like I can't I'm like going back out to because it's so hard.
It's okay. Go. Move to something else. Move to something else. Do as much as you can. After that, you can do spelling shut. Do whatever you can. Okay? I'll help you.
Now.
You can. If you're really, really stuck, go to spelling shut. Okay? Thank you. Sorry. So yeah, so that is very important, right? For the love of charity में उन्होंने क्या बोल दिया कि यार purpose बहुत जरूरी है. हमने खूब and then another thing, use of monetary and material resources acquired through righteous means. Righteous means, ये कहाँ से righteous means होने चाहिए? Not कि हम लोगों ने bribe खा ली खूब सारी, contractor हम हैं और हमने खूब bribe खा ली और फिर उसको पैसे को जाके उसमें से 5% of that I went and gave it to some मंदिर. और वो भी मंदिर ऐसा क्यों? क्योंकि मेरा टैक्स बचेगा वहां पे. The number of NGOs that have been set up by rich people in India just for the purpose of getting tax breaks is huge. Right? So material resources that have been acquired through the righteous means. जो righteous means से आपने acquire ही नहीं किया है, उसकी charity वैसे भी नहीं हो सकती क्योंकि जो आपका था ही नहीं वो आप दोगे कैसे किसी को? वो कभी था ही नहीं. जो कभी था ही नहीं वो कहीं ना कभी आपसे चला जाएगा और बहुत अलग अलग तरीके से जाएगा. You acquire something from somebody that does not belong to you righteously, not in a correct fashion. बीमार हो जाएगा कोई ना कोई घर में, पैसा चला जाएगा. दे दो आप फिर अब हॉस्पिटल को और डॉक्टर्स को. ठीक है? अलग अलग तरीके से कोई और आपसे छीन लेगा, कोई फिशिंग अटेम्प्ट हो जाएगा आप पे. राइट? दैट मनी विल गो. Easy come, easy go. Always. And it sometimes happens in such a fashion, you'll never even connect the two up. So material resources that have been acquired through righteous means are the only things that belong to you, and only that which belongs to you can you give to others. So righteous means, and the purpose is not to get tax breaks. It is not to even get more punya for myself. That does not lead to gyan. You can do a lot of right resources, right charity and everything, but with काम भाव, सकam bhav के साथ जब हम करेंगे तो क्या होगा? We will not get ultimate gyan. We'll only acquire those higher realms of life, from where we will again come down to the earth form, to the human form, to acquire self-realization. खाली self-realization यहीं से होगा. Right? So these two are very important pieces before we move to the next one. Yes, Rituj.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when you were talking about Abhay Dan and about fearlessness, and in that you mentioned about the carrot and stick approach that we use, which is against that. But when you mentioned that, I thought of the concept of prarabdha. Isn't that similar to a carrot and stick approach in the sense that if you do good things, then you'll be rewarded because if you're prarabdha, but you're in the bank that you're doing with good acts, and if you do bad things, then you're making your product, then you'll face it further. So, in a way, isn't that a carrot and stick approach to think of it?
Slightly different, right? Carrot and stick, from the way you're describing it, I would say is when you're linking it to prarabdha, would be the laws of nature. Okay. Bhagwan ji has laid down laws of nature, and he very specifically says that if you do certain things, you have a free will, right? He's made us in his own image, so we have free will to do whatever we want. And when we do certain things, he'll allow us to do always. Like in all through Gita, at no point of time does he direct Arjun to do something. He tells Arjun, ye karoge to ye hoga, ye karoge to ye hoga. In this, he also tells us what kind of parenting we need to do. We don't tell kids ki ye karo, we tell them ye karoge to ye hoga, ye karoge to ye hoga, make your own choice. है ना? So, whenever we make those choices, it causes certain consequences to accrue to us. Correct? Now, the difference between fearlessness, the concept of fearlessness as we described, and this concept of carrot and stick, plus the concept of prarabdha, it all boils down to our purpose, the purpose with which we do something. So if we do something with a sakam bhav, right? Karma Yoga chapter 2, chapter 3. If we do something with a sakam bhav, कि मुझे ये चाहिए या ये नहीं चाहिए, right? With rag and dvesh, rag, I want something, dvesh, I don't want this thing, right? Then we will experience, we become the bhokta, we become the experiencer of those actions, and those consequences will get accrued to us for us to enjoy them or to suffer them. When we are talking about fearlessness, we are saying, boss, you will not do anything with sakam bhav. Sakam bhav se to karne ke liye, then it is, I want this, I don't want this. You will definitely experience it. But when we are doing something with a nishkam bhav, that means we are doing things because they are in line with scriptures and they are my duty to do so, and I'm living my life as per principles, then the consequences will not accrue to me. I may experience pain or pleasure, right, at the body level, but it does not cause any kind of suffering or pleasure in my mind. I remain equanimous. My mind remains sthit pragya. I become sthit pragya. And the VVGPs around the world do not move me from my center, and I remain equanimous. है ना? तब जब मैं equanimous हूँ, I am fearless. Because then I'm not going to suffer, and hence my actions will not change because I'm trying to avoid certain pain, physical pain. And I will not do something because I will not go veer from my path to this side because I like the smell of this, I like the food, I like the taste of this, I like the feeling of this. Fearlessness, because I will walk the path no matter what comes to me because this is the right thing to do. It's experienced at a mental level, whereas carrot and stick is experienced at a physical level. Prarabdha that we experience happens only because we want that prarabdha. Because we are doing everything from a sakam bhav. The moment we are doing something with sakam bhav, we are only indulging in the sansar. अगर हम संसार मांगेंगे, भगवान जी हमें संसार देंगे. At this level, in this chapter, we are saying कि अब हम यहाँ पहुंच गए कि हमें तो संसार चाहिए ही नहीं. Right? इसलिए we are doing Atma Gyan. You get the difference, right? Carrot and stick approach is a very sansaric way of living life. So it will always lead to sorrow. It will always lead to fears. It will never lead to fearlessness. Make sense? Clear? So now again, then why did Bhagwanji create these prarabdha or these consequences or these rules with consequences, and every action will be followed by its, there will be consequences to every action? Kyun? They are meant to act as guardrails. They are meant to act as guardrails. So when those guardrails are there, they help us keep on the right path. है ना, हम लोग वॉक कर रहे हैं, यहाँ पर आएंगे तो like the guardrails on the road when we are driving, side पे वो रहते हैं, right? When you start to experience, we know that the गाड़ी थोड़ी सी veer off हो गई, you have to come back to the center of the lane, है ना? So these are meant to act like that. So they act as ways for us to know, yaar, I'm not on the right path, I'm not on the, let me adjust. And when we are driving with that Nishkam Bhav and we go onto it, I'm immediately able to correct back. Okay, so they are meant for that reason, to act as indicators and act as guardrails on our journey of life. That's why they exist. So fear from that perspective and pleasure from that perspective exists for that reason. He wants us, Bhagwanji does not want us to be unhappy. He has given us a lot of pleasurable experiences कि यार अगर तुम सही तरीके से सही चीज करोगे तो you will enjoy this life. You will have a very happy life. You need food to fuel this body. Eat food and enjoy it. It will give you very pleasurable experiences. I've created so many amazing 6-7 different tastes of life. Taste them, enjoy them. But आप उतना ही खाएं. युक्ताहार विहारस्य. Eat as much as is required and no more. Don't get into gluttony and greed. Eat as much as is required. Your body will remain healthy and you will enjoy that process of eating. You don't do that, then what happens? Then gluttony will happen and then it will cause sickness inside of you. But if you follow his path, you will enjoy your life. Right? Procreation is an enjoyable process because it is required. Bhagwanji wants you to do it. But when there is excess of it, it causes problems. Everything what was the word? दिमाग से निकल गया. विहारस्य, right? युक्ता से विहारस्य. Everything that we consume, when we do things in a proper fashion, in the appropriate amounts that Vedas tell us to, we lead a very happy life. Bhagwanji does not tell us don't sleep, don't eat, don't have entertainment. Do all of those things, but in appropriate amounts. He even tells us काम भी appropriate amount में करो. Don't be a workaholic. Don't work 16 hours a day. It is foolish. Everything in adequate amounts. Then you will have a very happy and balanced life. He wants us to lead a balanced, happy life. And all of these things help us to create that guardrails. ज्यादा सिकनेस होने लगी तो you know कि आपने कुछ गलत कर दिया. क्या गलत किया? खाना गलत खाया, ज्यादा काम किया. You know that, right? When we all work over the top, that means we are ignoring other things in our life, other duties in our life for the sake of that one duty. What does it do? We will feel fever, right? We get feverish, we get sick when we start working 16 hours, 18 hours, right? We've seen what happened to Anna, E&Y, right? So Bhagwanji tells us all of these, avoid all extremes, follow a balanced life. Okay, restraint of senses. So restraint of senses is basically the first part of your Patanjali Yoga Sutra. Dam and Sham, right? Dam is control of senses. And Sham is control of your mind. Shat Sampatti mein aate hain. Shat Sampatti, the 6 wealth of a person. Dam and Sham are the first two. Without Dam and Sham, you will never be able to achieve anything else. The whole cleansing, we said, the cleansing of our mind and our intellect. For that, dam and sham is required. Otherwise, mind will go crazy. Your senses will drive them crazy with those 5 horses that are going in 5 different directions. Without control of senses, without restraint of senses, they will go crazy with their with the consumption or their indulgence in their own objects. That has to be controlled. जीभ का धर्म है टेस्ट, रस. तो वो वही करेगा, वो तुम्हें बताएगा मुझे और लड्डू खाना है, मुझे और लड्डू खाना है, मुझे और चाट खाना है, मुझे ये खाना है, मुझे पोटैटो चिप्स बड़े पसंद है, मुझे खाना है खाना है खाना है. Your mind will control the senses, and your mind must be directed by the buddhi, and buddhi must be directed by Bhagwan Ji. If this hierarchy is not maintained, there is no control, no hope of any gyan, because there is no refinement of our tools. So restraint of what it says here, that today what happens is that we think कि हमारी happiness will come from the world. My happiness will come from enjoying the world. So और movies देखेंगे हम, बहुत enjoyment होगा. Parties attend करेंगे, बहुत enjoyment होगा. बहुत अच्छा खाना खाएंगे, बहुत enjoyment होगा. है ना? 5-star hotels में जाएंगे, बहुत enjoyment होगा, बहुत comfort मिलेगा, बहुत luxuries मिलेंगी. I must fly business class, बहुत enjoyment है, बहुत luxury है. Travel सारा कुछ. Everything we do is indulgence of senses. For what? For enjoyment. For enjoyment and for, we think, happiness. We are all going after happiness. We are actually, what we want is bliss. But we don't know how to get to that bliss. So we run after happiness, which comes from pleasure. It's not real happiness. It is only pleasure. And pleasure, everything in this world which is pleasure is only transient. And know that every time we are indulging, we are busy indulging any of our senses in our drawing room, pain and suffering is waiting for us in the bedroom. Always. Very, very important. Always remember, right now I'm enjoying. I'm having this drink here right now. Right? I'm enjoying my food. I'm going over the top with my laddus here. While I'm enjoying, know that associated suffering without fail is waiting for me in the bedroom. I may experience it immediately, or I may experience it 20 years from now. Right? A child who's like only indulging himself in chips and chocolates when he's growing up will eventually reap its rewards down the line. At 20, when he has cavity full of teeth, right, Vidhan? Cavity full of teeth. Or a body that has not got enough nutrients and will start to reap its rewards after 40. Right? So some of these things will accrue, some of the effects will accrue immediately. Some of these accrue, 20 years down the line. Some of them will accrue 60 years down the line. Some of them will accrue in our next lifetime. But accrue they will. And we will reap those rewards. Right? So restraint of senses is very, very, very important, so that we, and एक और एक चीज है, पता है, जब हम लोग, when we are doing this bhog through our senses, bhog always leads to dissipation of energy, which is exactly what I said. कि आपको जो, when I was saying that you will reap the rewards is what? We are dissipating the energy. We are dissipating the, what is the word in Sanskrit they use? एक वो word होता है which basically says strength of the resources, strength of our senses. वो क्षीण होती जाती है. It reduces the strength of our senses. That particular sense organ that I overindulge will become weaker over time. Any sense organ, it will weaken over a period of time. Its ability to enjoy will reduce over a period of time. And you can experience it firsthand through the economic principle, which says that every resource in this world has a marginal utility which is diminishing. We all have read this in our basic 101 economics, right? Diminishing marginal utility. Right? That first sip of water, the first sip of your Coke, that first bite of food tastes the best. And after that, every subsequent bite, the utility, marginal utility goes down until it reaches 0. And at some point of time, it becomes negative marginal utility. That extra gob of food I ate is actually now causing sickness, is taking away my strength rather than giving me strength. The same food. है ना? So when we have unrestrained senses, they will make our senses and our body and our strength weaker and weaker. So when we do the tap of restraining our senses, any kind, Vani ka tap, khane ka tap, through the fast that we do. Abhi Navratri aa rahe hain, right? There's a reason we have those fasts. All our festival season is full of fasts. क्योंकि feasting बहुत होती है ना उसमें. So fasting is required to control it constantly. Every feast is before that and after that there is fast. If you look at our calendars, right? So you have, when you do fasts, when you do any kind of tap which involves restraining your senses, it creates urja. It creates, one, it creates conservation of energy. जो आप energy use करने वाले थे बहुत बक करने में, that energy gets reduced when you do Vani ka tap, right? All that energy you were going to use to digest all the food you're eating, it gets conserved and it goes back to which now when you conserve that energy, it gets available to be utilized for a different direction. Now you can utilize the same energy towards Atmagyan. So that's utilization. So one is conservation of energy. Second is it also it generates more energy. Tap creates more energy. And that energy in Sanskrit, it is called ojas. It creates stage. Okay? It creates stage inside of us. So it creates conservation and it generates new energy, which now you can direct, which becomes available to be directed towards Atmagyan, to pursue Atmagyan. So that's restraint of senses. We'll stop the class here. We're already at 11:50. So we'll go through quick round of takeaways, but let's make it really, really short, like a couple of quick sentences so that we can close the class on time. Okay. So who wants to go first? And if there are any questions, of course, feel free to ask.
I can go first. So my takeaway was in the beginning of the class only when we discussed about removal of dirt and dosha panayam and getting rid of the asuri qualities and acquisition of the devi qualities and which are already there, but just by constant practice developing them. So that to equip myself to clean my vessel and retain the knowledge that is there and what I'm getting through the Gyan. And that is something that was my takeaway, retaining.
So, a lot of takeaways, but because it's quick, again, a reinforcement that every BBGP that triggers a negative inside me is basically a way to see what I have to cleanse inside me. And, that helps because that has been helping, because then you start actually not looking at what's creating, and in a way that dissipates the issue or that situation also, because you're turning inward. So that and one new learning, charity, I never had in mind that Abhay Dan is the biggest of them all. And so yeah, I will keep that in mind going forward with family and, as you said, with my daughter. Yeah, thank you.
I can go next. For me, Tapa creates energy, and this energy is what we can use for our change. And also that karmic rules are meant to be guardrails in our journey. So that would be my takeaways for today. Thank you.
My takeaway is everything you focus on the sansar, no, not on the fear. So everything, if the fear is there, you have to go deeper into the levels, go deeper inside, and then the fear there, the desire is there. So you have to cut down the desire and then take out the fear, and then you can do the right like a fearless, do the right purpose, the right way. The fearless it gives. The with fear we have the desire. So we have to go through inward. So I have to think about inside. If I have the fear, then I have to think deeply. So I would like to implement that.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll go next. My takeaway is like in whatever dhan we are giving, that particular thing will get purified. Annadan, and it purifies our own energy, and but everything, whatever we are doing with the right intention and to the right people, like that, that is the purpose of the dhan, and also the restraining of senses. So when we restrain the senses, that the conservation of energy happens, and we can use it for the right things. Thank you.
I'll go next. My takeaway was actually very early in the class where you were saying that like when things are not going your way, it means that things are going God's way. It's like a constant reminder that, it's important to know that you can't always, there will be some positive and negative, but you must always see the good and have faith that, things are going to work out in the way that's best for you at that time.
Absolutely. And that's what we say, Prem, in our class. We always say that everything that happens in life is either a lesson or a blessing.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
I think I'm the last one. So I think my takeaway is, controlling my anger issues, especially at work when things doesn't go my way. So I think that's something that I really need to work upon, because I realize that, because there's always a certain way in which I want outcomes to happen, or is there a certain way which I want to control the situation. So if I'm able to understand that, I'm better able to accept it and move on. So I think that's something that I need to work on, keep on working on.
So for that, Sanchita, this is a very it's a characteristic we all have. कोई भी नहीं है हम में से who's not a control freak, because that's what we have been taught from day one. We've been told to control. We've been told to resist the flow of life. And it causes a lot of anger because we are not able to, we can't control life, right? We are constantly trying to swim against the current of the river, which is life, always. Because we are always trying to control things. And that is something that we need to learn to let go. We need to learn to go with the flow of life. And when we swim with the flow of life, then life becomes very easy. Otherwise, it feels very tough, very difficult. And hum sab control freaks hain in some capacity. The only way for you to let go is to do samarpan, surrender. Now that samarpan and surrender does not mean कि आप अपना काम नहीं करेंगे, or that you will not follow up with your subordinates. But that expectation कि सब लोग exactly आपके जैसा काम करेंगे is one of the causes for friction. I have a very high level of expectation from myself and the results that I create, and I will have the same level of expectation from everybody around me. And when they don't do it exactly the way I want them to, there are 25 different ways of doing the same work. But I think that my way of doing work is the best and the results I create are the best. And that creates a lot of friction with everybody around me, with my children, with my spouse, with my friends, with my family, with my sister and brother, and with my colleagues. That is a massive problem which needs to be given up through surrender. You have to surrender to life, which means surrender to God. Do your work the best that you can, guide people with compassion and love, and forgive them for their faults. Create your guardrails, do your plan A, plan B, but after that, leave everything to Bhagwan Ji and treat everything that comes with prasad buddhi. जो हुआ अच्छे के लिए हुआ. ठीक है? And how do we remind ourselves? Because ये तो बात तो सुन ली अभी, कल implement नहीं होगी, 1 घंटे के बाद implement नहीं होगी. So how do we remind ourselves? It's through नाम जप. And नाम जप मतलब बहुत सारा नाम जप. 5 माला नहीं चलेगी, 6 माला नहीं चलेगी. Minimum 16 माला. Minimum 16 माला. Minimum. अभी नाम जप Anushthan will start very soon. In November, it will start, right? November to March, April will do. Everyone in this class should now commit yourself to 16 malas. We all have been doing this Nam Jap Anushthan yearly, right? 3 years now we've been doing, right? And we've all had experiences. We all started with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 10 malas. Now we all have to go up higher. This year, I want everyone to commit themselves to 16 malas. And then don't say that I cannot do it. I don't want to hear that word any longer. We shouldn't allow ourselves to say that any longer, because that is what ego speaking. I am going to do that Nam Jap. We're not going to do that Nam Jap. He will make us do it. And he will work through us. So surrender to him. That's your first level of surrender. Surrender to him and tell him, I want to do this. I need your help to do this. Help me. Work through me. Work your magic through me. Get me to do these 16. And eventually we have to take our Nam Jap up from 16 to 64 malas. When we are doing 64 malas a day, the clarity that will come inside of us and the antakaran ki shuddhi that will happen, which will allow us to be able to understand what Gita is talking, is going to really create magic. Like Shalini Didi always says that Maiya ji used to tell her, don't come to my class if you've not done 64 malas. Because there's no point in me telling you anything. You will not understand. Don't come to the class without 64 malas. Right? So Shalini Didi ka base tha for her to be able to attend a class with Maiya ji. So time for all of us to up that. It will help us deal with this growth. It will help us deal with the purity of mind that we talked about. Okay? Thank you, Sanchita. Yes, Rishabh.
Hi. My learning for today was with regard to restraint of senses. And though I've not done this earlier, because I've directly jumped from chapter 1 to 16, but the part that stayed with me was restraint of senses, especially with regard to the senses of the tongue that you mentioned, and the eyes, and so on. So I think this week I'm just going to concentrate on how to restrain some of my senses in whatever time that I do find, and I try and indulge myself. I'm going to try and watch how I overindulge. That's what I am going to try and do this week.
So I don't want you to try and control them. You won't be able to control them. Okay? You will try and control them in one way, and then they will rear their head in some other way. I'm going to control my sugars. It will translate itself into me over consuming something else. Always. You cannot control anything. You cannot get rid of any of your demons. Only Bhagwan Ji can. So what you need to do is to just observe them. The moment you're trying to control, your ego is transferring itself from one form to another. So all you need to do is to observe. Observe what you do first. Awareness is the most important part. So just observe. What are you doing? When are you doing? How are you doing? What causes you to be a certain way? What causes you to indulge, not indulge, behave in a certain way? That's it. With no judgments. अरे मैंने 4 लड्डू खा लिए, अब मैं अगली बार नहीं खाऊंगा. बोल लो कितनी भी बार बोलना है. एक बार नहीं खाऊंगा, 2 बार नहीं खाऊंगा, तीसरी बार 4 की जगह 8 खाऊंगा. Because it's my cheat day. So you will only keep on going in circles with that. So your only job right now at this stage should be 2. 1, start Nam Jap. Get yourself a counter. Start doing Nam Jap. And second, observe. Awareness with no judgment. Awareness, when we have that awareness and we don't have judgment there, that's when Ram is there. When there is only 2 things, okay, in this world. या तो राम है या ईगो है. राम है या रावण है. रावण इज आवर ईगो. और कुछ है नहीं. जहां रावण है वहां राम नहीं है. जहां राम है वहां रावण नहीं है. The moment you have judgment, you have Ravan. The moment you're killing yourself, you're criticizing yourself, you have Ravan operating inside of you. So Ram to chalega. But when you can observe and not judge, and yourself first. उसके बाद तो दूसरों का judgment खत्म होगा. तब you will have Ram entering your life. Then Ram is observing. फिर Ram ही kill करेंगे हम. That's the most compassionate way to be. Okay? Thank you so much for. So we'll start. We'll do the closing shlokas. Sanchita.
Yeah. Om Sarvesham Swastirbhavatu Sarvesham Shantirbhavatu Sarvesham Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukh Bhag Bhavet Om Astu Ma Sadgamaya Tamsu Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityur Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti 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 Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Om 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 Narayana.
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 Sanchita. So I think before we end, I think the last thing I will say is adding to what Rishabh was saying, right? Just to add to that, कि when we are saying ना कि हम लोग हमें awareness लेकर आनी, we have to bring awareness without judgment. Know that the moment we are using labels in our life, we are judging. Labels come from judgment. 4 लड्डू खाए तो अब हम कह रहे हैं मैं कितना greedy हूँ. Now the difference should be between them is कि we should not apply labels to people, to ourselves, to others. No application of labels to people. That person is angry, that person is irritating, that person is greedy. We have to stop using labels for people, including for ourselves, but apply labels to the specific action. वो action ऐसा है, आदमी ऐसा नहीं है. I experienced greed in this situation. What caused me? If I can find out, good. You'll probably find out. That was a moment for me to be angry. I behaved in an angry fashion. I'm not an angry person. I'm a very calm person because I'm a divine person. But I behaved in that fashion. So distinguish between the action and the person. Recognize and label the actions and the behaviors, but not the person. The person is divine. The person is Ram, whether it's me or whether it's you. That will help us distinguish and create that, like, take away judgment and bring in more awareness without judgment. Okay? Thank you so much. Narayan, Narayan.
Narayan, Narayan.